I hope you are having a great time here. I intend to keep it that way. I'm super pumped to be here, as we say it in Uber ways. I've known these guys, Luke, Nigel, Puppet Labs, for a few years now. And what they have achieved here is incredible. It has ushered us all into an era of DevOps. And that makes me very happy. A bit about myself. I have worked at several companies, some in enterprise space, some in consumer space, some in their hypergrowth phase as we speak, and some that have reached maturity. There have been a lot of learnings along the way. A lot of rich experiences I've gathered, operational styles that have worked, that have not worked, things that have worked and failed. If I have to pack all my learnings into one key takeaway, that would be speed and depth of innovation absolutely matters. It creates winners by a landslide. It disrupts existing markets. Heck, it creates new markets. And it is achieved through what I call high-impact work environments. So what do I mean by high-impact work environments? What are the characteristics? What are the idiosyncrasies of such environments? Well, first, I have seen myself moving through this paradigm shift, where now I am tracking the impact of my projects versus the project completion dates. I'm tracking user growth, customer adoption, customer churn, and spending lesser and lesser time on bug tracking, bug fixes. My OKR meetings have changed, where we talk about solving problems versus scouring through a list of projects that we have to work upon. This environment creates a strange impact. People are now seeking truth versus seeking approval. There's an interesting bit here. I think this occurs because of the customer proximity that these environments provide. At Uber, I almost feel like putting up an engineering model that says, don't push in any piece of code in production that stops you from taking a ride back home in the evening. You're having fun, you're writing a lot of code entire day, you're pushing code in production, and in the evening, when you're going home, you become the customer of the software that you are working on. Now, that is an extreme, and Uber is probably an epitome of customer proximity. But I've also seen high customer proximity in traditional enterprises. There are programs like Design Partners, where you have a select set of customers whom you share internal builds, who provide active feedback. You are literally watching the customer behavior, the user behavior of your software. And that gets you closer to the truth. And when you have facts on your side, you don't need approvals. You are now automatically solving the right problems. Before I move on, I want to talk about a very interesting ingredient of high-impact work environments, what I call cognitive dissonance. These environments have a high ability to endure the mental stress that comes with allowing people to have multiple conflicting views around a topic. Why does this matter? How does this make a difference? Well, now you are giving a chance to a better idea to win. It is, for example, the difference between automation tools and building business intelligence, building intelligence within your tools. Now you are focused on solving problems. You are not lost in tactics. You are not lost in processes. You don't need artificial processes. There are still some processes, and we'll touch upon it. It is not all unicorns and rainbows, but it does get better. It saves you time. It helps you focus on the thing that actually matters. Now, how do you make this leap? This requires working on various dimensions and at various levels. I'll cover a few of them here. Mission-driven development is the first and foremost that comes to my mind. When I see Uber, honestly, I see conglomeration of startups. We have dozens of teams, each with a very clear mission that ties back to the company's mission. So if you're a leader, create that mission for your organization. Break it down to every level, every team, every group, every individual. Give them the sense of purpose and empower them to achieve that mission. If you are an individual contributor, work within your sphere of influence. Rally people around your mission. Of course, tied back to your company's mission. Now you have a set of people who are extremely passionate, helping you to achieve your goals. All right, so when I talk about empowering people, creating a mission-driven development, you will have people who are absolutely marching towards their mission. They are going to incur certain tech debts. They may have certain duplication in efforts. They may be stepping on each other's toes. And it is OK. It is OK to step on each other's toes as long as it is done with respect and humility. It is OK to have duplication of efforts as long as there is a plan to converge. It is OK to have tech debt for a short time. Once you have proven your idea, you should have the discipline to go back and clean the clutter. Here's the thing about tech debt that I have learned over a period of years. It decays your code base only when it stays for a long time. Now people don't know why it is there, why it was created in first place. They don't know how to remove it. And that creates a toxic environment. Not just a toxic code base, a toxic environment. So as long as there is a plan to clean it, as long as there's a discipline to clean the clutter, it is OK to have tech debt. You need to prove your idea first. You need to solve the problem first. Now, managing in such an environment is interesting, right? You can't have complete chaos. That's not going to lead you anywhere. You can't have highly regulated environment. That's going to suffocate innovation and speed. So how do you manage in this environment? That's where I have found culture comes to rescue. A lot has been said about culture. There are companies that are great examples and bad examples of culture. There are places where culture has worked, not worked. But here's the thing. When you have culture, With its strong engineering values, you form the guardrails for people to know what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what to expect from each other. Engineering values could be people-oriented, could be technology-oriented. I'll give you some examples of values at Uber. Our company value says, be fierce, but be humble. Now, if you're a person who likes to get stuff done, who has that just slight bit of aggressiveness to get things done, but at the same time, you respect people around you, it is going to be easy for you to operate in those environments. When your personal values align with the company values, it reduces the friction points. It makes your day-to-day discussions easier. Our engineering value states the first and foremost thing is build enduring architecture. Resiliency comes first. Now, when they need to make a case, when engineers need to make a case about their priorities, they can use these clear stated values to help them move forward. Everybody has accepted the values. In fact, that is where the next bit comes in. Culture and engineering values are pointless if they are written somewhere and they are not really institutionalized. Use them in your performance rubrics. Use them in your hiring criteria. Use them in your day-to-day discussion. Repeat them. Rinse them. As the company grows, especially in the hyper-growth environment we are in, we have to constantly revisit the values. They may get outdated. Keep them up to date. Repeat them. Use them in your environment. And now you have formed solid guardrails for people to execute with freedom to a certain extent. The next piece is entrepreneurial mindset. Entrepreneurial mindset is the willingness to do whatever it takes to achieve your goals. As a developer, you are not done when you have pushed the code in production. You immediately start measuring user adoption of your feature, of your service, of your product. As a product manager, you want to know the details of implementation to ensure what you are putting out has an intended impact. Now, entrepreneurial mindset cannot always be hired. That's very hard. If we hire all the entrepreneurs out there, there'll be no startups. But it can be cultivated. When you see the first few people who have that right mindset, the mindset that you want, they can create the domino effect. The best example of company that I've seen cultivating entrepreneurs is PayPal. Just search the word PayPal Mafia. You will see the employees, the former employees of PayPal are the ones who created YouTube, Yammer, Yelp, LinkedIn, and of course, Tesla and SpaceX, and of course, Palantir. There has to be something unique about that environment, that sense of purpose that got cultivated, that led to creations of so many awesome companies. And when you find those vanguards of your culture, celebrate them. Put them at the forefront. They will create the multiplying factor. They will spread the goodness. Tools matter a lot when you want to create a high-impact environment. When you have these entrepreneurs, when you are cultivating this entrepreneurial mindset, you need to provide them experimentation platform so that they can try out their ideas. You need to provide A/B testing frameworks, the feature flip frameworks. When you expect your people to be fierce, to move fast, you need to have those continuous integration tools that allow canary rollbacks, canary rollouts, that allow automated rollbacks. When you have to make your mission measurable and you have to measure the right thing, you need the right tools to monitor and track the metrics that matter. So now you're starting to see that interesting bit between tools and engineering values. Again, culture, engineering values cannot live in vacuum. To me, tools and architecture, these are the implementation of these values in some form. And finally, the most important thing, architecture. This is what your customers are getting behind the scenes. This is what your massive user base is getting behind the scenes. This is what your developers are working on. And if you have to make a high impact, it needs to be modularized just enough to let parallel development happen, to empower people to do what it takes to achieve their mission. Now, of course, service-oriented architecture is the best place if you can get to. But of course, it needs to happen at pace and based on your priority. You can start with macroservices. And then there is a fine balance and a lot to be talked about macro and microservices. But the key idea here is, again, when do you know when to stop? It is through knowing what you're doing, how much it matters to you. The second bit about architecture that I want to talk about is this notion of don't just anticipate failure, embrace failure. When each line of your code is written with an assumption that the infrastructure beneath it may fail, the services upstream may fail, and when they come up, they may throw you a fire hose of events. So do you have the right back pressure techniques? Do you have throttling techniques? What happens when the services downstream fails? How do you manage your code in that P90th workload? Do you have load shedding techniques? When you have thought about this, they actually make you highly productive. This is, again, an interesting thing. It's a great book that says, be quick, but don't hurry. This is a great example of this. When you write your code base thinking about the basic failure scenarios you can anticipate, and you have embraced the fact that things are going to fail, you are actually going to get less interrupted. And with each interruption, you are going to use that opportunity to strengthen your code base. That is going to make your efforts even more 10x. That is going to 10x your efforts. I have an interesting piece to share here, actually. So a few months back at Uber, there was a bug introduced in the data layer, and it caused a chain of reactions. Some services started failing. And the engineer on call does what he always does. He rushes to his phone, takes a ride to Uber to get into the weeds. And as the car arrives and he sits in the car, he starts thinking, well, I can still take a ride. How awesome is that? I know how critical that bug is. I know what kind of impact that bug can have. And I'm still able to take a ride, thanks to those caching layers. But that's the point here. It now motivates people, makes them even more passionate to do what's right, to make things happen. All right. So we looked at some of the dimensions that you can work upon to create that high-impact environment that absolutely impacts the speed and depth of your innovation. That eventually makes all the difference. Now, different companies are different environments are different, and all of what I said, some of it may apply, some may not apply. And when you go back to your desk, you may find that your environment is even more customized, it's even more unique, that none of what I said applies. At that point, I do want you to remember to take the intent of the letter versus the content of the letter. The point here is solve hard problems, ask hard questions. Inspect absolutely where are you spending your time. Measure metrics that matter. And I'm a science fiction fan, so here it comes. Past weekend, I had to watch Martian, and I love it how, in the end, Matt Damon puts it. If you solve enough problems, you get to go home. I was thinking, if I can put it in my way, I would say, if you solve enough right problems, you get to go home big. And the reason I say right problems is, again, I'm an engineer in heart, so we are all in this together, but I think we engineers are very creative. We are creative problem solvers, and we can creatively define new problems that may not be that impactful. So it is very critical that we are solving the right problems. Now, there's one place I know there's a great example of high-impact work environments. There's this one place I definitely know is solving hard problems, having new challenges every day, tackling them in interesting ways. So if you want to join the mission of Uber, here it goes. We are hiring. Join us. Thank you.